emblems. I looked it up. Some Russian guy started this ambulance company, but all I think of is the kid who doesn't want his mom to go in the emblems. I'm kind of curious where this word comes from and the derivatives. I don't think it's a Russian word, but I couldn't find it. Nothing came up on my search. But wherever you live, you could be limited in your Google search. You never know. It was funny. This is the rail park, by the way, in Philadelphia. I used to work in that building there when I first moved to Philadelphia. That's the building I worked in. But I lived in Gainesville for 2.5 years, and my aunt kept getting false weather, and we checked everything. We're like, it's not Celsius, it's not a different location. Why is she getting like fake weather feeds? And it wasn't like a source like The Onion, like some fake news site or so. It was like it would just pop up on a brand new iPhone that one of her sons and daughter-in-law purchased for her birthday. They put her on a plan. She had been on a flip phone for years. She got it like a year before she passed away, so they didn't have to pay for that long, that plan. But anyway, what are some people in some communities, and it could be just a housing development, it could be an entire town, are they fed news that's actually not matching other people's news and weather? I had a basic old Android. It said that, everything was correct according to other sources in the town, weather and otherwise. So are some people fed erroneous information? Can they go by IP address even to make sure some people don't have the right news? Is it done? Why would it be done? Protective services, or the opposite? Or to keep people kind of unknowledgeable or quote-unquote dumb about what's actually going on in reality, or to bother them. Like, it's clearly not 32 degrees in the middle of August in Florida. It's like it's not Celsius. It didn't say Celsius. It said Fahrenheit. It said Gainesville, Florida, not Gainesville anywhere else. We went through a whole thing, and it's like, that's odd. I don't think my aunt would know how to play a trick either. She was old enough to not really know how to fidget with phones, if you can come up with it. So anyway, here's the rail park. Our people railroaded. And I used to work in that building there. Our people who worked in this building railroaded. I worked for a publishing company at the time. They no longer are housed here. They are housed around the corner in another building where there's CBS Eyewitness News. So anyway, but this is, railroad. Everyone has their own idea of the railroad. Of course, I guess Jewish people would not love certain railroad connotations because that's the image you get from the Holocaust. Everyone being carted off on trains, and those sort of like freight cars, or not freight cars, they were actually like passenger-ish. Some of them might have been freight. Interestingly, on my maternal side, our grandfather worked for, I guess you could say, the Pennsylvania Railroad. It had a different name. Just sort of get up here. Had a different name. Wasn't Conrail. I have to look at the paperwork again. But he worked for the railroad as a lineman. So he would climb things that are like telephone pole-ish and do grounding work, or I don't really understand it totally. He had a scar on his stomach because once they didn't do the grounding correctly, and it lashed, some sort of electric shock latched on his stomach. But he would retire right close to 70, 71, 72, Interestingly, Amtrak came along, and Amtrak was named just after he retired. So Amtrak wasn't always called Amtrak. And it goes along with President Biden's senatorial career. It's like so everything shifted in the early 70s, 72, 73. In fact, my mom was kind of abandoned. Her husband left for the lady up the street who was also married and had a divorce, and 2 kids. I have a sister. My grandparents on my mom's side moved to Florida with my aunt on my mom's side. So everyone sort of abandoned my mom and us, except my dad was still in our lives. But technically there's a lot of abandonment. We were left alone and vulnerable.